Good afternoon, good evening, good night, you guys. I was getting tired of saying the same thing every time.
Nice. I was like, where is she going with this? Good morning.
Good morning. I hope you're enjoying your coffee.
Yeah.
We're so happy that you guys are tuning in, no matter what time of the day it is.
Perfect.
You're listening to Freckles and Blondie, the show where we spend longer than an episode of Lost discussing each episode of Lost. I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Randy.
Today we're discussing the 23rd Psalm. This episode aired January 11th, 2006, after a fairly long winter hiatus. It was directed by Matt Earl Beasley and written by none other than Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse. Those very busy guys.
They are very busy. I feel like they've written a lot of episodes lately.
They have. I haven't counted them up, but it just seems like they're all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as you might expect, but still, it's a lot.
Yeah, I like it.
I definitely appreciate it. And this episode, I feel like it has the flavor of a Carlton Cuse, Damon Lindelof episode. You know, it's so philosophical. There's so many religious references, like overt and subtle.
Yeah.
And like their episodes always have that kind of crunchy layered feel where there's like a really good A and B storyline that fit perfectly together.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say the same thing. Like this episode feels like it has a lot of good layers to it. And that's one of their trademarks, I feel like.
Yeah. I feel like when we don't get all that, we're like, what's going on?
I know.
This didn't relate to that at all.
Yeah, this wasn't complicated and complex at all.
I'm not left confused. I don't like it.
Yeah.
How did you like the episode?
I liked it a lot. I like Eko. I like learning about his backstory. Yeah, it was pretty good. Some of the stuff with Charlie is not my favorite, but you know.
Yeah. Charlie is so tough in season 2.
He really is.
You want to love him, but it's so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, they do things to Charlie that I just don't agree with. But I did like I feel like there was a connection between Eko and Charlie that was made in this episode, and I did appreciate that. So.
Yeah, and I hadn't really noticed or thought about that connection before. Like how parallel their lives are in a weird kind of way. Like someone on Instagram, I think, was telling me that Eko and Saeed live very similar lives. And I've kind of like felt that before. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Cause, you know, they had such horrible circumstances. I mean, God, it's hard to say that because so many of these characters had horrible circumstances that they had to overcome.
Yeah.
But those are, I think, like Eko and Saeed, it's almost like cultural circumstances that they've had to overcome.
Right.
So it's different in that kind of way.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about Eko and Saeed, but yeah, they're also very similar. That's interesting.
And I feel like Eko and Saeed both kind of have that extremely rational, practical approach to things. You know, like whatever comes at them, they're not going to be fazed by it.
Yeah, they're very stoic about high stress situations, it seems like.
Yeah. Like, I've seen worse.
Right. It'll be fine.
Giant smoke monster.
Yeah, whatever. It's
That's
not
the worst that could happen.
I feel like this is like your favorite kind of episode of Lost. Is that true, or?
Yes, I think it would be true. I mean, I really like this episode. You're right, it's like my kind of episode, but I wouldn't say it's like one of my favorites. Just because, like, Eko is not one of my super favorites. I really like him, but...
Even though he's Locke 2.0?
He is Locke 2.0. But I don't feel as attached to him as I do to other people.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. And then there's not, like, other than that very first scene, which is so intense, I feel like there aren't a lot of, like, punch you in the gut emotional things, and I really like that stuff a lot, too.
Got it. Yeah.
Maybe that's why I love the Locke episodes. It's like the culmination of both of those things.
It's so funny.
I want to cry. All right. Shall we get into it?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay. Previously on Lost, we learned that Charlie was addicted to heroin. Lucky or unlucky for him, a crashed plane in the jungle happened to be loaded with Virgin Mary statues full of heroin.
Oh, very unlucky.
And Michael appears to have gotten word from Walt via the Hatch's computer. We open in Nigeria with a group of boys playing soccer when a group of guerrillas with guns arrive and they begin to round up the children. An old man protests and he's immediately knocked unconscious. One of the smaller boys, Yemi, is pulled from the group and told to shoot another man who waits on his knees. Yemi's older brother runs forward, takes the gun, and shoots the man for him. We learn that this is Eko. The gunman laughs and he tells Eko that he's a born killer, ripping off the crucifix around his neck and escorting him to their truck. Which is like the most intense first scene of an episode ever.
Yeah, it just drops you right in. It's immediately terrible.
Yes, it is. And I feel like you know who Eko is right away. First of all, that casting was amazing.
Yeah, they did a good job with that.
But that's so like him to just step up and do the hard thing for someone around him. Like he's been doing that for Ana Lucia and, he even did that for Sawyer.
Yeah, that's true. And he does it, without even thinking about it, it seems like.
Yeah, like this is his natural reflex.
Right.
Is to protect. But you could certainly read this in a different way because, like the gunman says, he's just like, wow, you're a born killer. So it completely depends on your perspective that he could so easily do this.
Yeah, I guess. Clearly he's only doing it to save his brother, right?
I think so, yes. I think you could make the argument the other way. I don't think it would be as good the other way.
Yeah, that's fair. He's only 11 years old and he shoots that old man seemingly without any hesitation whatsoever, so.
Yeah, I think maybe it's the lack of hesitation. Because he's quick about it.
Yeah, it's sad though. This is obviously, what happened in this scene obviously informed how the rest of his life went and all the decisions he made throughout his adult life, so.
Yeah, so traumatizing.
Yeah.
Can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's awful.
And I always wonder about Yemi's perspective on it all. We get a little bit of it later, but, right now, as a child, I can't imagine what he must think if he just feels guilty or, I don't know. I don't think he should feel guilty, but it's complicated.
Yeah, it is. And he's so young. Who knows if he can even process what just happened, And
maybe he can't, and that's why he is the way he is later.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I find him kind of frustrating later, but we'll get there when we get there.
Okay.
Back on the island, Eko is carving Psalm 23 into his stick when Claire joins him, baby in arms. Eko notes that Aaron's name is the same as Moses' brother, and he asks why she chose it. Claire says she just liked it. Eko says that Aaron was a great man who spoke for Moses when he had difficulty speaking. Claire tells Eko about Charlie's Virgin Mary statue fixation, and Eko is very intrigued. He wants to know where Charlie found it, but Claire doesn't know what the big deal is until Eko smashes the statue and shows her the heroin inside.
Yeah, here we go. Here we go with this story.
Claire really loves telling people about Charlie's Virgin Mary statue.
Yeah. I guess because he's so fixated on it.
Yeah.
But she's like, yeah, you should talk to Charlie. He's super religious. It's okay.
You guys could be friends.
Right. What has Charlie ever said to Claire other than holding that statue that makes her think that he's super religious?
Yeah. If someone was carrying a Virgin Mary statue around all the time, I would think they were super religious too. They're what other explanation is there?
Yeah, that's true. The fact that it would be filled with heroin wouldn't cross my mind, so.
Yeah, definitely not.
That's fair.
Locke is in the hatch, resetting the combination to the gun safe. He awkwardly and correctly ascertains that the guns are why Michael is standing there staring at him expectantly. And that is the scene.
Yeah, I was wondering when I watched the scene, Because Locke says that, he's changing the combination now that the tailies have come, and joined their group so that not too many people have the combination to the guns. But it's like, shouldn't they have already done that from the beginning? Like, how many people had the combination before Locke decided to change it?
Yeah, I don't know. I always read this as him not trusting Ana Lucia and wanting to make sure she can't get to the guns. But yeah, you're right, because, like, the tailies wouldn't know it anyway, right? They wouldn't know the combination, so why change it?
Right. Or I guess I was just thinking, I would expect only Jack and Locke to have that combination.
Oh, okay.
Because Jack's already, like, before they came down in the hatch and found that room with all the guns, he's still wearing the key around his neck for, the 4 or 5 guns they do have. So it just seems strange to me that, the past few weeks, pretty much everyone's had access to that room full of guns? Like, that doesn't sound like a great idea, but,
yeah.
I don't know.
I guess we haven't had much need for them and nobody's gone after them, but you're right. Like, I guess it's just been kind of a free market.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Charlie is helping Jin fish. Well, he's serenading Jin while he fishes. But Jin does not seem interested in scaring the fish away. Eko marches up to Charlie and demands that he take him to where he found the statue. Now. Like, right freaking now, Charlie. No protests allowed. Eko does not have time for this. I love Eko in this scene. He's just like, no.
It's real scary.
We are going now.
Yeah.
In Eko's flashback, he is all grown up now and apparently a pretty powerful warlord. He meets with some drug dealers who have excess heroin that can't be sold in their country. Eko convinces them that he's doing them a favor by buying this heroin and getting it off their hands. One of the drug dealers says, "It's true what they say about you. You have no soul." Eko smiles and instantly slits both their throats in one swipe. 'Cause, He then looks at the young boy who was with them and tells him to go. And remember that Mr. Eko let him live. Huh.
I like this scene a lot.
He's incredibly badass in this scene.
Yeah, the actor who plays Eko is so good.
He is very good. And this scene is so intense because when I see it, I think he's like straight evil. He's a bad guy, like he's doing this drug deal and he has a reputation. He's clearly done a lot of stuff that they know about, probably really bad stuff.
Yeah.
And then he just, kills them, like, with the flick of a wrist. Like, brutally kills them.
Yeah.
I don't know how to feel. I really like Eko, and I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about him after this scene.
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like I already like Eko a lot at this point, so I'm willing to write off some of these more disturbing facts about his past life. Not write off, but it just doesn't bother me as much as it normally would, maybe.
Yeah. It doesn't bother me as much as other circumstances do. I guess they're drug dealers, so they're not, like, totally good guys.
Right.
But still, like, dealing drugs doesn't mean you should get your throat slit. Disproportionate response. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky.
It's a really hard scene. It's hard to, like, reconcile it, because
yeah.
He is bad, and he's like, he doesn't even seem guilty about it. And that's kind of the defining trait of Eko, is that he has no remorse for the things that he's done. He feels like he's doing what's necessary, which is so fascinating. I love that about him, but it's also just hard to grasp.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when you contrast it to what we've got of him on the island thus far.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 2 almost completely different people in one sense.
It is. And, I think that's definitely intentional.
Mm-hmm.
But wow.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of bad stuff for a really long time.
Yeah, it's not great.
I think it's good that they don't go super detailed into his past, because then it would be really hard to like him. Like, if we got an account of all the things he'd done. I mean, what is he, like 30 years old here? Maybe a little older than that?
Yeah.
And he has been, living the warlord life this entire time. He's done lots of bad stuff.
Right. Yeah, and you could always say that, it's not really his fault. He was kind of forced into this life after he tried to save his brother from the same fate. But yeah, it's like after a certain point, that's kind of on you,
Yeah. Once you're an adult, you're no longer a victim of circumstance as an adult.
Right.
Like as a kid, absolutely. I don't blame him at all. But now it's a little different.
Yeah. It's like my favorite subject, serial killers. Like whenever I listen or I watch, reports or listen to podcasts about them, it's like, yeah, because they're often also victims of circumstance. They have terrible childhoods. But then it's like, yeah, once you kill your 12th person, that's on you,
Exactly.
Can't blame that on your terrible childhood. So
yes. And if people show some remorse or any sort of agony over what they've done, I'm automatically more sympathetic. That's always my problem with Ana Lucia. When she does things that are wrong, she doesn't seem to care or own it.
Right.
And so it's hard for me to forgive her when she doesn't do that. And, and then I'm sympathetic towards Sawyer because I feel like he shows the trauma of what he's done. I can tell that Sawyer's in pain because of it. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what makes Eko so hard. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's so great, but he's so he's so complicated.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Okay, so maybe Eko had a little bit of time for delays. Charlie stops by Claire's tent. She is not thrilled that Charlie's been secretly carrying heroin around. Charlie tears up the bag of heroin in front of her and tells her he didn't know it was in the statue. Claire is unconvinced though and tells him to go with Eko.
Don't tell her more lies, Charlie.
I know, this is the worst scene for him.
Seriously, obviously you knew what was in that statue. She's not an idiot. Oh, yeah. Goodness.
Charlie.
Yeah.
He's so immature. He always acts kind of childish. This is something that a kid would do when they were caught doing something wrong. I didn't know. I didn't, and it's such a blatant lie that it's just so frustrating.
Yeah. And it's just so much worse because it's to Claire.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I would still argue that a lot of what Charlie's doing is not really consistent with the character, the way he was acting in season 1. I mean, he was always a little immature, but this is just come on.
Yeah. It's hard to say what all this is rooted in for Charlie. Where does that immaturity come from?
Yeah, I don't know. It could be maybe a product of his adult life. We've only ever really seen him just be in Drive Shaft, be in the band.
Right. Not the most responsible career choice.
Right. Especially, with the details we got about that life where they were pretty much seemed like they were just drinking and partying and doing drugs and,
yeah. Yeah, that's true. So then I guess it's not completely unmotivated for him to act this way.
Yeah, I suppose.
It's just really annoying because we don't want him to.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Maybe the problem is not even the drugs or the hiding the drugs. It's this bold lying to Claire.
Right.
Because so much of his season 1 story was about Claire and, he obviously had fallen hard for her and he seemed so loyal and he killed a guy for her, it's clearly pretty passionate feelings and yet he disrespects their relationship so much by doing this.
Right. That's exactly it. It's like you said, he killed Ethan for her. He almost died himself when they both got taken together. So the fact that he's acting this way towards her is kind of, it's kind of mind-boggling to me. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I think that's definitely the crux of the problem.
Yeah.
Locke is giving Michael some firearm lessons. Michael says he knows people think he's going to run after Walt the second he can. And Locke says that if people are talking and saying that, he's not hearing it. But that doesn't sound like a very smart plan if it's true. Michael agrees and takes a shot, obliterating a giant jar of Dharma Initiative mayo. Then he smiles a little too creepily and a little too long for us to buy anything he's saying to Locke right now.
Okay.
It's super weird, right?
Yeah, I didn't really notice that, but now that you mention it, yeah, it's a little strange.
I feel like they hold the shot on his face for so long, and his smile just like gets really creepy and weird, and I'm like, whoa. What happened to Michael?
Yeah, I guess I'm just so used to Locke being the one who smiles creepily into the camera, so...
But Locke does it with a twinkle in his eye where you're like, oh, haha, Locke. You're so adorable.
I mean, that's what you say. I'm like, please calm down, Locke, but yeah.
Yeah, I find it disturbing, especially when it's right after he shot something. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
Charlie's pretty ticked with Eko at getting him in trouble with Claire. Because, that's obviously Eko's fault. He stops at a tree and tells him that this is where he found the statue. Eko seems surprised, and then he looks at Charlie and says he's lying. Charlie says he doesn't even know him. He doesn't owe him anything. Eko pushes him against the tree and tells him to take him to the plane. Charlie asks how he knew about the plane, how he knows everything, but Eko doesn't know why Charlie lied to Claire. Charlie is not happy at all this disrespect he goes through, and he goes off. Eko, however, is distracted by the flicker of black smoke that wafts through the air behind Charlie. And I love how consistently people ignore Charlie.
I know, it's so sad.
It is so sad. And he has every right to be frustrated that people are constantly disrespecting him, because that definitely is happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like earlier in the season when he had that conversation with Locke, we were like, Charlie, calm down. Like, no one's ignoring you. But people ignore him all the time. It's really sad.
They really do. They're like, whatever, Charlie, go away. Go play your guitar.
Exactly. We don't need you here.
And I like Eko just being able to look Charlie in the face and know that he was lying.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess Charlie doesn't really know Eko that well, but dude, you can't. Eko is way too smart to be lied to. Like, don't even try it, Charlie.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty risky strategy.
Yeah.
This guy was pretty serious about finding it.
Yeah.
And we have this little flicker of smoke monster, which I don't even know what to say about this anymore.
Yeah.
I have literally no insight.
I know. Yeah, I wrote later on, I'm like, well, that's what it was. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to make of it, but it's here. It's here. We haven't seen it in like a long time, but here it is.
Here it is, and all you can really say is that it's clearly drawn towards Eko.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can pull from this episode. The thing about the smoke monster is it's hard to talk about it when, like, we only want to talk about it in reference to things in the future.
Right.
Right now it's just a mystery, so there's not much insight to be had.
Yeah, there's not.
But it's worth noting.
Yeah, and when I was looking at trivia for this episode, I read something that said this episode and the appearance of the smoke monster ended like a 1.5 year speculation on what the nature of the smoke monster was. And I'm like, no, it didn't. Like, we still don't know anything about it. Like, it didn't answer any questions about the nature of the smoke monster, in my opinion. But...
Yeah, no. In fact, I feel like it opens the door to more questions.
Yes. So,
especially this, like, little flicker of it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's always been a pretty big thing. And now we see, like, the little traces of it. I guess we've seen that before, but yeah. It doesn't answer anything.
No,
it's ridiculous.
Certainly doesn't. I don't know where they got that from, but.
In a flashback, a woman is selling the Virgin Mary statues to raise money for polio vaccines for the village. Eko's brother Yemi walks out, dressed in priest garb, but he refuses to hear Eko's confession. He says it won't mean anything. For confession to mean something, you must have a penitent heart. Eko says he did what he had to survive. How is that a sin? Yemi says he knows the things Eko has done. Eko asks if what he did for him when they were children was a sin, or if it's forgiven because it saved Yemi's life. He tells him he needs to use one of his church's relief flights to get his drugs out of the country, and that he'll give Yemi all the money for the church to buy their vaccines. Eko tells him God gave them this opportunity, but Yemi says only Eko's grief brought him here. Yemi tells him he loves him, but that he will not help him. So, I feel like he raises, first of all, there's so many interesting questions here, but the one that I really thought was interesting was when he asked Yemi if it was only not a sin to save him because he saved him. It wasn't somebody else.
Right.
That implication, like, you've got, our lives all equal, or are some more worth saving? Is, you know, like, if Eko had decided to save himself in that moment instead of Yemi, would that have been wrong? I don't feel like anyone would fault him, but I think saving your brother is, like, clearly the more righteous decision.
Right.
So, I don't know, it's very interesting. And Yemi clearly doesn't see things this way at all.
He sees things very black and white. I think.
Which is amazing when you've seen your brother do what he did. I don't see how you can't see what a burden he took for you.
Yeah, I agree.
know?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's the same thing we were talking about earlier, that maybe he originally saw it that way, but as the years went on and he kept hearing all these terrible things about Eko, he finally had to, you know, at some point put that on Eko's shoulders, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. It's a tough situation, obviously.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, I don't blame Yemi for not wanting to help him or get involved with this at all. Like, I wouldn't want to be involved with Eko and his friends either.
Yeah.
And then I get Eko's frustration because he's, you know, trying to help him and he feels like this is a win-win situation.
Right.
So,
yeah, like the village obviously needs the money for the vaccine.
yeah, like this will help everybody
Right.
if he just agrees to it.
Yeah.
But, ugh.
Yeah, and I feel like, I mean, the implication here is obviously that the only reason Yemi became a priest is because of Eko's sacrifice for him, right? Like, the way in that very first scene, Eko was wearing that cross, and Yemi picks it up as Eko is being taken away by the warlords or whatever.
Yeah, you're right.
Right?
The way they pass that cross back and forth throughout this episode is so symbolic of what you're saying.
Yeah. It's just, when I was watching it, I was like, oh, the only reason Yemi is a priest is because of what happened with Eko.
Right. And then if Eko hadn't done what he did, would Eko be the priest? And would Yemi, like, would they have just completely switched situations?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I love this backstory for him because it completely explains his come what may philosophy. You know, if that's true, where he and Yemi live kind of almost interchangeable lives.
Yeah.
Then he's gonna feel that way, like, it just is what it is, and like, oh, you pick up the crucifix and now you're a priest, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of like that explanation.
Yeah, and it's a very complicated, meaningful reason to feel that way.
Right. Because, yeah, I feel like that's part of Eko's character that's always kind of been a little bit harder to relate to. The fact that he's just like, yeah, things are this way now. No explanation required, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if that scene in the beginning was such like a formative scene for how both his life and Yemi's played out, like you said, like it could have gone either way, and maybe Eko would have been the priest instead. So, yeah, that's interesting.
Right. Yeah, and you know, from Eko's perspective, Yemi has the luxury of choosing this life in the church. You know,
Right.
Like he doesn't have to carry that burden around that Eko does. And that's why it's hard for me to, like, I understand why Yemi sees things in such a black and white way, but he just doesn't seem very grateful that he was given the luxury of having that mentality, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. He really doesn't.
I'm just not sure how to feel about Yemi. not sure how to feel about any of this.
I feel like at this point, I can kind of see both Yemi's side and Eko's side, but...
Yeah, I do too.
But I feel like by the end of the episode, I'm also kind of like, Yemi, I don't know if that was really necessary, but...
Yes, we will get to that.
Yeah.
We are on the beach, and Kate is giving Sawyer a haircut. When she tells him he doesn't need to be belligerent anymore, everyone already loves him, he calls BS. Actually, he says bullpucky, whatever that means.
Okay, Sawyer.
Bullpucky. What? I turned the captions on to make sure I heard that correctly.
I don't even think I heard that word, because that's not a word. Like, what is that?
Bullpucky. If you know what that means, please get in touch, because I do not.
Must be a Southern thing.
Yeah. Say the girls from Virginia.
Yeah. Must be a really deep Southern thing.
Yeah. The deep backwoods.
Yeah.
Just to prove Kate's point, Hurley tells Sawyer he's glad he's back, much to Sawyer's dismay. Michael asks Kate if he can have Kate shift in the hatch later. Then he says to Sawyer that he's glad he's okay. And Sawyer is just not able to handle all this love.
God.
It's really funny.
Yeah, it's just typical Sawyer.
Are you mad at him here?
I'm not mad at him, but I feel like you can tell in this scene how much he hates that, you know, quote unquote, everyone loves him now.
He doesn't know how to process that.
No, he hates it. Like, he can't stand it. And this to me is just further proof that I feel like he still has a long way to grow as a character. Like, that he can't even...
absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? That he can't even accept that people are being, like, semi-nice to him after he almost died.
No, he's, like, so confused.
Yeah.
He doesn't understand where this is coming from.
Oh, gosh.
He really can't process, you know, people caring about him. Which is that's so sad. Like, that he's never had people care about him and that this is such a new experience.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of brings it on himself, but yes, it is very sad.
Also, can we compare him to Spike for the 1000th time? Because this really makes me think of how Spike was so devastated and had his identity crisis when people didn't think he was scary anymore.
Oh my god, that's so true.
It's the exact same thing.
It is the exact same thing. God, why don't I love Sawyer like I love Spike?
I don't know, Randy. It doesn't make any sense.
I don't understand. It's just a weird anomaly, I guess. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was listing my favorite characters from all TV shows the other day. Somebody asked me, and they were all, like, essentially the same character.
That's so funny.
It was like Sawyer, Spike, House. They're all the same guy, really.
That's funny. See, I feel like if I were to list some of my favorite characters from TV, Spike would definitely be on there, but he would be like the anomaly. All the other ones might be like, not the bad boys, but like the good, you know, people.
Yeah. Interesting.
Weird. So weird.
It's gotta be the accent. There's really no other explanation.
Yeah. Yep.
Back to Lost. Charlie tells Eko he's not what he thinks he is. He's only an addict because his brother started doing heroin. As usual, though, no one listens to Charlie, and Eko notices a parachute in a tree and the dead priest on the ground. Charlie asks if he knows him, and Eko says yes, he saved his life. And yeah, this is like the instance where they make it really textually clear that Charlie and Eko have similar influences in their lives.
Yeah.
And I mean, Charlie's is a walk in the park compared to what Eko has been through.
Yeah.
But, you know, there is that, you know, brotherly thing, that bond that is unique.
Yeah, I mean, both of their relationships with their respective brothers influence both of their lives in very significant ways.
Yeah, and they both sort of stepped into this darkness out of loyalty to their brothers.
Right, exactly.
And I think, it's a little different because Eko did it for his brother. He made a sacrifice for Yemi, and I don't feel like Charlie did something for his brother. I think he was just really influenced by him.
Right. Yeah, I felt when I was watching this scene, I just kept thinking, oh, if it wasn't for this whole heroin business, I feel like Charlie and Eko could have been really good friends.
Yes, and they have that religious connection too, because we've definitely emphasized that with Charlie. And I know I've thought before that if he hadn't been in this band, that he might have been like part of the church or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, if only.
In another life.
Yeah.
At Yemi's church, Eko barges in. Eko tells Yemi if he just signs the ordination documents to make him and his groupies official priests, he can fly the plane himself and give Yemi all the money for their vaccines. Yemi tells him to leave, but Eko tells him he lives in a world where righteousness and evil seem far apart, but that is just not the real world. He says his friends would burn Yemi's church down, but he could save so many lives if he just signed this piece of paper. Yemi concedes, but tells Eko he will never really be a priest. Eko requests the Virgin Mary statues as well, and notes that now they're both sinners. Yemi says yes, but that God will forgive him.
Again, I feel bad for Yemi, kind of. Like, he doesn't want to save his village with this, drug money that Eko's giving him.
Yeah, I don't blame him. Definitely wouldn't want to be involved in this at all.
Yeah.
But it's hard to argue, too. So I also don't blame him for backing down.
Yeah, me either. He didn't really have much of a choice, it seems like.
Yeah. And I guess he's saying that he'll be forgiven because he shows remorse and he's gonna ask for forgiveness, whereas Eko never does. But at the same time, Eko asked Yemi to hear his confession, right?
Yeah.
So maybe he would like to.
I don't know how serious that request was, but yeah, he does say that.
Yeah. Huh. I don't know. I feel like that throws a wrench in all my theories on Eko.
Yeah, possibly.
I also think it's a little silly that Eko's like, my friends will burn your church down. Like, tell your friends not to. You're Mr. Eko. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, they look pretty formidable, but yeah, he does seem like he's the leader of their group, so.
Yeah, you just slit 2 throats with 1 knife in 2 seconds. I think you can handle this.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I really love the line where he says, righteousness and evil are not as far apart as they seem. That the real world isn't like that. Because I think he's right, and he has a perspective that Yemi just can't understand.
Yeah, it's a good line. Definitely.
Charlie is lost. He needs an adult. Or a Saeed. He notes
Sorry, an adult.
Sorry. I say that all the time. Help, I need an adult.
So great.
He notes the blood on Eko's scripture stick, and after some protests, climbs a tree to figure out where they are. Eko looks around nervously while Charlie climbs. Then he hears the smoke monster, and sees it, knocking trees over as it flies right towards him. Eko stares at it intently, and the camera pans right through the smoke monster, and we see flashes of what are maybe silhouettes, and then it turns and leaves.
Yeah.
Do you see silhouettes? Am I crazy?
No, I think it is silhouettes, yeah.
Okay. It's really cool. It's a really cool effect how they, like, go right through the smoke monster.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, this is definitely the clearest and the longest shot we've ever had of the smoke monster.
Yes. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It doesn't answer any of my questions about it, but it's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I always feel like in the context of this episode and the way it just kind of like stares at him, for lack of a better word, I always wonder if it's like judging him in some way. Because we've just talked about this so much in this episode, and it seems so focused on him. You know, not Charlie, not anybody else. Like, it's definitely focused on Eko. So.
I think it is. I don't want to spoil anything, but
Yeah.
It is, right?
I don't know. That's just like the impression I get.
Yeah, I don't know. Because again, when I was looking up stuff about this episode, I read something that said later on it's revealed that the silhouettes that you're seeing in the smoke monster are actually like snapshots of Eko's past. So yeah, it's clearly judging him at this moment. Again, I feel like that's a major spoiler.
When is that revealed?
I don't know. I didn't remember that either. It's just something I read.
I don't remember that ever being revealed.
Yeah, or maybe it wasn't revealed, or maybe it's just like when people slowed it down and analyzed what was like going on in that smoke, then you could really tell what those images were.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell that it's people, but that's about all I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, I could barely even tell that. It's
like I wasn't even positive that that's what I was seeing.
Right. Oh, also I have to say really quick before we move on, Charlie's line of, "You're gonna beat me with your Jesus stick," is one of my favorite lines in all of Lost.
It's so funny.
Just the way he delivers it. Oh, I love him. But anyway.
It's pretty great. Charlie can't believe that Eko didn't run, but Eko says he was not afraid. He seems pretty unconcerned about the whole thing, and he is focused on his plane mission, which is just hilarious. It's like, that's a very Locke-like response.
It's
that happened.
So similar to Locke.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
Back in the hatch, Michael is pacing and checking his watch. Or Jen's watch? Did he steal Jen's watch again? Like, whose watch is this?
Yeah, why do so many people on this island have watches? Like, what's the deal?
Like, Michael, did you already have a watch when you stole Jen's watch? Like, what?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And why are you still wearing it? It has no meaning here.
Except right now, it has meaning.
Oh, fair.
He gets on the computer and receives the message, Dad. He asks Walt if he's okay, and he says yes, asking if he is alone. He says he can't talk long. They'll be back soon. When Michael asks where he is, he replies, "You need to come," but it's cut off as Jack walks in at that moment, deciding that it's a fine time for a chat about Walt. Jack says as soon as they can, they're going to go after Walt and they're going to bring him back. Michael thanks him and tells him that he is fine. And this scene is very tense, very good.
Yeah.
This whole time I'm just like, what's on the computer? And then they do that like kind of reveal right as Jack walks by to leave where you see nothing on the computer and you're like,
yeah.
Oh, we don't get to see what he said.
Of course not. It's true. It is really well done. And yeah, I love Jack in this scene.
I do too. This is like, I was going to point this out in the last episode and we had so much to say that I couldn't possibly say more.
We did.
But this is, again, that inconsistent bedside manner.
Yes.
You know, like we made such a big deal about his bedside manner being horrible, and yet we have these times like right now it's great. Like this is exactly the comforting thing that you should be saying to someone like Michael. And in the last episode, he was like treating Sawyer and he's like, "Oh, you dug the bullet out of your arm with your bare hands. That's pretty impressive." You know, he's just like casually talking to him and it just seems really, really nice. It's like, okay, we can't make this huge deal about him having a horrible bedside manner and then do scenes like this.
Exactly. Like he's so focused and concerned in this scene. And yeah, it's like what you said, like even when he was talking with Sawyer, it was just like if Sawyer had been conscious, that would have been kind of exactly what Sawyer would have needed to hear in that moment, I feel like. So yeah, Lost can't decide whether Jack has great bedside manner or it's terrible. Like it's just...
No, they really can't. He just ping-pongs all over the place as a character and it's just frustrating because if he were this Jack all the time, everyone would like him. It's just, it's so annoying.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he can definitely be inconsistent. I would argue it's more with his bedside manner, but yeah, again, we spent a whole flashback episode on him talking about his bedside manner and how terrible / not terrible it was, so.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And it's not like that's a a faraway thing. Like, that was season 2. You know, we're still in the first half of season 2.
Exactly.
No excuse for this. No. Come on, Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse.
Get it together. Make up your minds.
Jeez. Eko and Charlie have finally reached the plane. Eko remembers back to the day that the plane took off. We see Eko dressed as a priest loading it up. Yemi arrives and tells Eko not to get on the plane, saying he's here to save Eko's life. He begs him not to go. Apparently, Yemi called the military. Eko's friends begin shooting at the approaching military vehicles, who return fire. Yemi shouts for them to stop, but instead he gets shot in the chest. Eko grabs him and pushes him into the plane, and one of his friends kicks Eko off the plane before taking off, leaving Eko behind on the tarmac. And yeah, this is totally what you were talking about earlier, like frickin' Yemi. What were you thinking here?
Yemi. Yeah, I mean, he had to know that Eko wasn't going to come quietly when he called the military, and that this is probably going to end in a horrible shootout where people are going to die. Like, this is not a good outcome for anyone, you know?
No, it's really not. And you gave them about 30 seconds to make a decision before they showed up. It's just frustrating because I feel like he's doing this to comfort himself, like to assuage his own guilt.
Exactly.
And because of that, people are going to die. And, you know, he doesn't know it's going to be him, but, you know, multiple people are getting shot here. And if he just had said nothing, nobody would have gotten hurt. You know, they would have left, and yeah, they would have done like this bad drug deal. You know, that's not good, but it's better than people dying, and I don't know how he didn't see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly right. The deal was already done. It's kind of selfish of him to make this decision, seemingly to clear his own conscience about his involvement in this.
Yes.
If he had just thought about it for another 5 minutes, I feel like he wouldn't have made this decision. But, I mean...
Yeah, this is the thing that is hard to reconcile about Yemi.
Yeah.
And maybe this is just based on pure naivety. Naivete? Yeah. Where he just doesn't realize what's gonna happen. Like, he just is too in his black and white world to know that sometimes doing the right thing is gonna lead to these bad consequences. Mm-hmm. 'Cause on paper, this was the right thing for him to do. But, yeah, it was so not. Like, realistically, it just wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he is very young. So, yeah, maybe it is him being naive, like you said.
I just don't know how you can, like, live in this, like, war-torn country as a priest. Like, you're a leader in your community, and how could you be this naive? Like, how could you not have some idea of what would happen? Especially, like, you know the things Eko has done. I don't know. It's just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, it is crazy. Like, I mean, yeah, I'm just thinking about all the things he must have seen growing up in, you know, Nigeria during this time. All the terrible, terrible things he's seen. But everything's black and white for him. Like, it's gotta be the way it has to be. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. I just wonder what he thinks should have happened with that old man that Eko shot as a child. Like, black and white, what was the white choice there, you know? What was the correct thing to do?
Right.
Does he think Eko did the wrong thing? I mean, I guess you could say the right choice would be to not do anything and take the consequences, whatever they are.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question, though.
Oh, Yemi. I feel like we're arguing more about Yemi's actions than Eko's.
I know.
Eko's the one who's done, like, all the horrible stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
I mean, I know we're naturally sympathetic towards the character we know, but it's kind of interesting how that happens.
Yeah, I didn't go into this episode expecting to feel this way about Yemi, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think I felt that way before either, but it's just, like, when you really look at his actions, it's annoying. There should be a better word for it, but
yeah, it's like,
I don't know.
It's like just his lack of understanding of how, the world works.
Yeah, like a willful ignorance.
Yeah.
You know? Like, okay, like, you know, Eko doesn't want to know about all this stuff either. He just kind of has to.
Right. And again, I feel like when Yemi walked up to them when they were loading that plane to warn them that he had called the military, I feel like in his head he was expecting Eko to be all contrite and say sorry and go with him and give his confession and start living his life with God, you know? Like, that's, I feel like how Yemi pictured it going in his head. I was like, no, it was never gonna happen that way, Yemi.
Also, maybe you could have done this 20 minutes ago.
Right.
Give the dude a chance.
So true.
I guess that wouldn't have worked well for TV, but still.
Yeah.
Back on the island, Eko climbs into the plane and finds his brother's body, and he sobs. And his acting is absolutely ridiculous here. It's so good.
It's great.
We cut back to Eko on the tarmac. The military men approach and refer to him as father, asking him if he is okay. So, they officially trade places like they originally did in the opening scene. I mean, the only thing I can say is that as irritating as Yemi's actions are to me, in a way he, like, did wind up saving Eko and sacrificing himself for him.
Yeah.
Though I don't feel like that was his plan.
Right. I don't either. But yeah, it's almost like he repaid him. He repaid Eko for the sacrifice that Eko made toward him in the beginning.
Right.
So yeah, I like that parallel.
Yeah, it's done really beautifully.
Yeah.
Eko places a statue on his brother's body and he pours some water over top. He then hands Charlie a new statue, saying it's for the one that he broke.
Oh, please don't, Eko. Please.
I don't know why he does that.
Don't.
They set fire to the plane, and Charlie asks if Eko is really a priest or not. Eko places Yemi's crucifix around his neck and says that yes, he is. Then he recites Psalm 23, Charlie eventually joining in with him. Which is so lovely.
Yeah, it's like a nice, again, the connection between Charlie and Eko is really nice to see, especially in this last scene.
Yeah, and my struggle with Eko has always been this religious aspect to him. Because it just doesn't seem to mesh to me with his, like, everything's a coincidence, everything just is what it is mentality.
Right.
And yet he's, like, so drawn to religion and, you know, he's happy to be a priest. Like, this is awesome, you know? He seems pretty psyched. So, I don't know how to reconcile those two philosophies. They seem so different to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a combination of, you know, what happened to him when he was younger, when he sacrificed himself to save Yemi. And that's kind of where, like, his it is what it is philosophy comes from. And then I feel like a lot of the reason why he's so happy to be a priest is because of Yemi and because that's what Yemi chose to be. And, you know, obviously Eko feels guilty about what happened to Yemi and he kind of feels responsible that he died. So I feel like he just feels like happy that he's knowing he's paying tribute to Yemi. Like he's continuing the work that Yemi was doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's part of it for sure. But he definitely seems into, like, the religion itself. You know, he can recite this whole psalm by memory, and he's, you know, carved lots of stuff into his Jesus stick. So, like, he's no stranger to religion. So, I feel like it can't just be about Yemi. It has to be something he also wants to be a part of his life.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
I think you're right. Like he psyched just seems the wrong word for Eko, but I think he's happy to be a priest and he's happy to step into these shoes and be a good person. Like, oh, good. Yeah. The opportunity finally presented itself for me to be a good person. But I feel like if you're a religious person, you kind of, I don't know, you put your faith in God and that he'll take care of everything. So that seems like, I don't know, that seems like such a Locke philosophy. And, you know, everyone always opposes Eko and Locke.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, it just feels like, it just feels like, his guilt over what happened with Yemi is like a driving force behind his accepting this role as a priest. I mean, there's obviously other things that go into it, but I feel like it's more complicated than your typical, I put my faith in God and whatever else happens is whatever,
Yeah. I wonder if he would have been a priest if that had never happened to them as children.
Yeah, I feel like you can make the argument that he definitely might have.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one who was wearing the crucifix to start.
Yeah.
And so, who knows what would have happened to him or Yemi.
Yep.
We get a lovely montage, seeing Ana Lucia alone, but approached by Sun and Jin, who bring her some food. Hurley helps Libby set up her tent. Sawyer and Kate continue to fuss over Sawyer's hair when Jack approaches with some medicine for Sawyer. Awkward times ensue.
Oh, God.
Charlie returns to Claire, and she tells him he lied. He apologizes and says it made him feel safer to have it around. But Claire says she doesn't want him sleeping near them anymore. She can't have him around her baby. Charlie picks up his things and goes. And in the next scene, Charlie is alone in the jungle when he pulls out the statue Eko gave him and adds it to the collection he's been keeping hidden.
Charlie, just get rid of it.
I know. Oh, I hate seeing this collection.
Yeah. Again, the only thing I'm holding on to throughout this whole thing is that all the statues are intact. Like, he hasn't actually broken into any of them. And I feel pretty confident in believing that he hasn't used heroin since he gave it up, in season 1.
Yeah, I don't think he has, but you could definitely, I wouldn't blame anyone who didn't give him that benefit of the doubt,
I mean, I feel like you would definitely be able to tell if he had been using heroin again. It would be obvious.
Yeah.
In his behavior.
It's weird that he has this stash. Why was he carrying that one statue around if he had this stash? Did he seriously need it that close to him? I mean, I guess that's the only explanation.
Yeah, I don't know. I sympathize with Charlie when he said it made him feel safer to have it around.
Yeah.
Addictions are, not that I've ever been addicted to heroin or drugs, but they're, they're tricky. They're complicated.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a powerful thing that has made him sneak around in the jungle and build this stash up and hide it from everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, Charlie.
Yeah, it's just heartbreaking.
I mean, I don't blame Claire one bit.
I don't either, but it's weren't they just eating peanut butter a few episodes ago? Can't we go back to that, please?
Yep. I'm sure she'd love to if maybe Charlie would stop lying.
Yeah.
So frustrating. So, you could pull about 1,800 themes from this episode. Which one did you choose?
Okay. As I said previously, I really like the connection between Charlie and Eko in this episode, particularly with their, similarities with their relationships with their brothers. So, I was thinking the theme could be, in the end, you and only you are responsible for how your life turns out.
Oh my gosh. High fivesies.
Yes! Did you put that too?
Almost exactly.
Yay!
I said, is it our circumstances or our actions that make us good or bad?
Oh, of course yours is worded really nicely. But yeah.
I just like it in the form of a question because it's so lost-like to ask it as a question. Because I don't think they give us the answers to these things.
Right.
So
right.
I don't feel like there's a right, I can't say it in a statement because then I would be saying one way is right.
That's fair. But yeah, it's like we said earlier, Charlie tries to blame his brother for his heroin addiction, which isn't completely fair. And, Eko, I feel like there are points in this episode where Eko also kind of makes Yemi feel guilty for saving his life since he had to, turn to this life of crime, and it obviously is, awful for him. So.
Yeah. He does make Yemi feel guilty, or try to make Yemi feel guilty.
Yeah.
Which isn't really fair.
Right.
You know, he was just a kid too.
Right. And again, like we said earlier, I mean, Eko she shouldn't blame Yemi for this life of crime that he's chosen. Like, he's an adult now. He chooses to do this and participate in this every day. So.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that Eko feels like he was never evil. Like, despite doing bad things, he did it because he had to protect himself. Right. And sometimes you have to do bad stuff to save yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, if everyone's life is equal, you know, then self-preservation kind of gives you the right to, you know, do something wrong and, you know, kill somebody else. So under that logic, I feel like I understand why Eko doesn't feel like he's done anything wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, you know, by circumstance alone, Eko becomes a priest. Like, he didn't really take any actions where he should deserve that. It's tossed in his lap. So, and then he fully embraces that. Like, he was dealt the hand to do evil.
Yeah. And
then dealt the hand to do good, and he'll take it either way.
Yeah. It's just so complicated.
Yeah. And I mean, I love how Charlie's storyline just fits into this so beautifully because, you know, his struggle is so similar and I feel like it's not nearly as intense, and I feel like he doesn't have as much right to that feeling as Eko does.
Right.
But I don't know.
But yeah, it is similar. Yeah, again, I feel like their connection, I mean, you can really tell who wrote this episode when you look at the connection between Eko and Charlie, because it's well done in a lot of respects.
It's very well done, and it's not a connection that would have come to you automatically.
Right.
I wouldn't have instantly paired them up and been like, oh, those guys have been through really similar stuff.
Yeah,
like,
definitely
not.
Yeah.
The Rockstar and Mr. Eko.
Right, right.
But I think it's also just interesting to look at what they're gonna do now. Like, here on the island, they can't blame their brothers for anything.
Right.
You know, they have a new circumstance, and, you know, Charlie can't blame his brother if he starts using drugs again. It's completely on him. And, you know, Eko has really stepped up into this, like, moral figure on the island, and you can tell, like, that's who he really is.
Yeah.
So, I feel like this is such great setup for this conflict that Charlie's having with his addiction, and we're gonna see what his real choice actually is, what it comes down to for him.
Yeah, we are.
I don't really remember exactly how this all plays out, so.
I mean, I can't even tell you how much I'm dreading episode 12. Like, cause that's where it all comes to a head with, like, Charlie, and I hate that episode so much, so.
Yeah, I remember parts of it, and I remember really not liking Charlie.
Yeah, it's bad.
You know, I mean, I've said before that originally I did not like Charlie, and that after rewatching the show, I liked him better. I feel like I didn't like him because I started in season 2. I blew through season 1 in like 3 days. And then season 2 is the first time I watched it as it aired, where you really like take time with each episode and it kind of marinates. So my first impression of Charlie was this shady season 2 version of Charlie.
Well, that makes a lot of sense that your dislike for him.
Luckily, I rose above it.
Yeah.
Later, but, you know, that just clicked for me. But yeah, do we have anything more to say on this episode? I feel like we have agonized over it, and it's one of those very morally complex ones that you can't really settle on any sort of conclusion. It's just fun to talk about.
Yeah, it's just complicated.
Yeah.
And I'll also just say real quick that the fact that Jack and Kate's only interaction in this episode is just some awkwardness where they don't even talk to each other just makes me really angry. But
well, you know, Kate's got her friend back, so she doesn't really have time.
Stop it. Stop it right now. I remember watching this episode live after having it been off the air for a month or two, after Jack and Kate had this huge moment and it came back with this, and I was like, oh, so that's all you're gonna give me? Cool. Thanks, Lost. Thanks for nothing. I was so mad.
Yeah, when you put it that way, I completely understand why you're so frustrated.
Like, they can't at least have, like, a goddamn conversation? Nothing? Alright, fine.
Yeah, you guys are handling things great. Alright, that is all for now, guys. As always, thank you for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you, especially those of you who have taken the time to review and rate us on iTunes, or send us a donation through Patreon. This week, if you'd like to support the show, you should think back into the recesses of your mind about everyone you've ever enjoyed a good Lost conversation with. And maybe they would like to listen to this podcast. You won't know until you ask them. So you should, spread the message and spread the love.
Yes, please.
We grow only with your help, so you've got to spread the word. If you want to get in touch with us and give us some feedback, then you can email us at frecklesandblondie@thelostpodcast.com, or leave us a voicemail at 484-416-LOST, and you can always get in touch with us via Instagram. We will be back next week with our thoughts on the hunting party, when I'm sure all my Happy Jack feelings will completely evaporate, but...
Don't say that! I'm really excited about that
realistic,
episode.
Randy. I can't really remember an episode where I was like, oh wow, Jack's a great guy.
Well, maybe you'll be pleasantly surprised, Tiffany.
That would be a really fun podcast to do. We should play each other in a podcast, and I'll be you and you can be me, and I can just talk about how amazing Jack is, and you can love Sawyer.
Oh my god, that would be fascinating to do.
I'm into this. Until then, I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Randy.
And this has been Freckles and Blondie.